Don't forget, ko-fi.com/stopwritingalone is a real simple way to show your support for what's going on here week after week. Hi everyone, this is Nicole Rivera and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast for writers who are looking for their writing community. I know you want to find readers for your work, but I think your first step is to connect with other writers. That's what we're going to do here in the Stop Writing Alone podcast. We'll do writing prompts and other writing group activities, discover online writing communities, learn how to find local writing groups, or how to make your own. Join us as we explore, learn, and write. Hi everyone, this is Nicole Rivera and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. This episode is sponsored by this podcast. Do you have a product, a workbook, a course, something that you think the writers of Stop Writing Alone would really be interested in? Contact me at stopwritingalone@gmail.com with your info, and we'll have a chat about what we can share with this awesome community. stopwritingalone@gmail.com, subject line, sponsors. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Hey everyone. So last week I was talking so much about taking messy action, about finding community, about putting those two things together for sustainable success. And to that end, I've been staying active in all of my different communities and trying to up the bar by making sure that I show up for my very many mentors out there that I feel that I've learned so much from. As part of this conversation, in doing so, when I'm showing up for all these different things, a theme has started to permeate through conversations with people I'm in community with, through messages that I'm receiving from mentors. And I have to say that each time it has come up, I have felt slightly triggered. And I try to check myself that when I hear something and I'm automatically defensive about it, I'm like, no, that's not right. I really try to stop and say, okay, Nicole, that's obviously something you are hanging really tight to. Maybe it's something you need to examine. So I've examined. And thus comes today's episode of Stop Writing Alone, where we discuss why your story matters, why fiction matters, and why I'm still going to hang tight to this one. And maybe you can tell me if I'm turning a blind eye to something. So here's what's happened. I'm in a book club run by Sam Kimberly, as you know. This is the same book club where we went through The Artist's Way in the late summer, I guess it was. And now at the start of the year, we have started Cathy Heller's book, Don't Keep Your Day Job. And the first chapter in the introduction is a discussion about what are your dreams? What would you like to do? She's all about, not working for someone else necessarily, but making sure you work within your passion and you do what you love every single day. So we're having the conversation in the group and the topic comes up that we love writing. There's a bunch of us in the group that are writers. And perhaps the story isn't important enough of a life goal because it's not doing enough to change the world. And I hear this conversation and I feel it because I've been in this space before myself. In fact, it's probably why I went into teaching and never even bothered to major in literature, English, or anything like that. And I majored in math instead because all of my love and adoration for story felt frivolous, felt like something that was not important. And I needed to spend my college money wisely and my career and my lifetime wisely. And so I did. I became a teacher. I became a math high school teacher. Very lofty there. Definitely rewarding. But now here I am on the flip side of that. And I have finally come to recognize the importance of story. But let me just pause there for a second, because it wasn't just in the community conversation that we were all having as these guilt-ridden writers that maybe we should be spending our time doing something else. I also attended a couple of live webinars this week with people I admire, consider mentors in this entrepreneurial world. One is Cathy Heller, who wrote that book, and the other was Jasmine Starr, who is, this social media brilliant woman who's a photographer. And both of them mentioned at different times, it wasn't a point of their lesson. It wasn't even they spent a lot of time on it. They were throwaway comments that both of them said that they don't watch television at all and they don't watch Netflix. And totally understandable, because both of them have these enormous businesses that require their time and creative energy, and then they have their families and people that they're close with that they also want to spend time with. And this is a thing that they both sort of consider a waste of time. And then there was the conversation with my best friend, which is a regular theme, not surprising at all, because we know this about each other, where she has just moved, and she, in her new community, was invited to a book club. She found out about it, just a week before it was starting, and didn't find out about the book right away. So she was calling me up and saying oh my goodness, the things tonight, I never even was able to get the book. I could get it on Audible now, but how many chapters could I honestly listen to before? Should I not go? And we got into a whole conversation about, going, and this is great. You're going to be at a book club. And she was like, yeah, but, I feel weird about saying this to you because you're into the writing and all of this. And I'm cracking up because I know what she's going to say, because we've had this conversation before. She's like, but I really hate fiction. It feels like I don't even want to say it out loud. A complete waste of my time. So here I am with the universe coming with my best friend from we've been friends since high school, with two women that I admire for the work that they do in this world. And then my community of people who are my writing buddies starting to question if this path is too frivolous. And like I said, at every turn I'm block, block, block. And so we need to discuss. We need to discuss why it is important. And I'm not looking to change anyone's mind here. I never even try to change my best friend's mind, because I know that she doesn't like fiction. She doesn't enjoy it. So it's not my role necessarily to impose my beliefs upon somebody else. I don't believe it is anyhow. But I want to have this conversation specifically for the people who have chosen to take these steps. And I believe that's people that listen to Stop Writing Alone and may be questioning whether or not it's frivolous and are kind of on the fence. And that's who I want to talk to today. I want to talk to you guys about where the importance is, because it might be a little bit of self-doubt that is making you think these things. It might be voices from people who don't get it in terms of what you can offer the world through your story. And it's to no fault of their own. It could also just be someone else's opinion, and I don't want you to take someone else's opinion as your fact. So here's the first thing that I want to discuss, and I had mentioned this in the book club, that I would dig out this article that I knew existed, this research that came out years ago that has always stayed so close to my heart. Because the thing that people feel guilty about is that fiction is, again, a waste of time, frivolous, or what have you. It's not doing enough for this world that needs so much. But research actually shows that some types of fiction can actually perform in my opinion, the single most important job that this planet needs. And that is improving empathy. I mean, if you sat back and you thought about, like, what is the thing that we all need to just be better? It's like we all need lots of empathy. So in October of 2013, Scientific American had an article, it was October 4th, entitled Novel Finding, Reading Literary Fiction Improves Empathy. It says that the subtitle is The Types of Books We Read May Affect How We Relate to Others. And I distinctly remember reading this way back when, because it was at a time that I wasn't teaching anymore, but my husband still was, as he is now. My husband's an English teacher. And there was a big move in the English curriculum right now in the States to read more nonfiction. And each year he was getting less and less novels for the classroom, less and less short story, and more nonfiction. And there's, fabulous reasons for that as well. We need to educate our students to be more critical readers of nonfiction when they're going out into this big bad internet world where things are being thrown at them. So the argument, I'm not arguing against nonfiction by any stretch. We need both. So I was very worried that fiction was sort of just being taken out, it seemed, from my perspective. And so that's why at the time I was very intrigued by this article. But continuing my journey as a writer, this has a study that has stayed close to me ever since. So here's what the article says. How important is reading fiction in socializing school children? Researchers at the New School in New York City have found evidence that literary fiction improves a reader's capacity to understand what others are thinking and feeling. So they go on to explain how the study was designed, and it sounds like a pretty sound study. They did varying size groups. They had groups from anywhere as small as 86 participants to all the way up to 356 participants, and they gave them reading assignments. And each of the participants and the groups had different types of reading assignments. They had excerpts from genre or popular fiction. That was one group. Literary fiction was a separate group. Nonfiction was a third group of reading assignments. And then there was a fourth group, kind of like our control group, I guess, who had no reading assignments, nothing to read. Here's what happened. After they finished the excerpts, the participants took a test that measured their ability to infer and understand people's thoughts and emotions. The researchers found, to their surprise, a significant difference between literary and genre fiction readers. So when they read nonfiction or nothing, they didn't even make a blip on the study. They're nothing really happened. When they read excerpts of genre fiction, such as Daniel Steele's The Sins of the Mother, their test results were duly insignificant. However, when they read literary fiction, such as The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, their test results improved markedly. and by implication, so did their capacity for empathy. It says here that the study was originally published on October 4th, I guess, of 2013, in Science, the journal. So why? Why literary fiction over genre fiction in building empathy? Well, later in the article, they say that literary fiction focuses more on the psychology of characters and their relationships. One of the researchers says, often those characters' minds are depicted vaguely without many details, and we're forced to fill in the gaps to understand their intentions and motivations. This genre prompts the reader to imagine the characters' introspective dialogues. This psychological awareness carries over into the real world, which is full of complicated individuals whose inner lives are usually difficult to fathom. It says, although literary fiction tends to be more realistic than popular fiction, the characters disrupt reader expectations, undermining prejudices and stereotypes. They support and teach us values about social behavior, such as the importance of understanding those who are different from ourselves. Is there any greater thing that you can do with your time than help others be more empathetic? I can't think of anything more important, but maybe that's just, again, my opinion of what we are here to do. But now I hear some of you that are sitting in the background and saying, but I like to write genre fiction. I like to write that popular fiction that they said doesn't raise a blip on the research. I like to write like Danielle Steele. So maybe I'm wasting my time. At some point, and I'm sure this has come up at some point in this last year of me podcasting, we have to have a conversation about value and what we value. So this is going to seem completely unrelated, but I promise you it all comes together. I discussed last week, and I think I've discussed it before, that I have been in a decluttering class. It's called Uncluttered. And the topic of value comes up a lot because people will struggle with getting rid of an item they paid a lot of money for. The financial value of the item seems so great that it should not be just donated or thrown away because they spent so much money on it. And I've struggled with this so long myself and found a way through it that I get it now. The financial value of that item is only one piece of the value that it provides. There's the value of you having that space in your home. There's the value of not spending the time figuring out how to sell it and just being done with it. Value comes in many different forms. And you say, well, I spent so much money and I didn't even use the thing. Okay. But how did you feel when you bought it? Did you feel really good for like a week and you were like on top of the world? Like, can we value that and say that some of the money went toward that good feeling? One woman was struggling with an air fryer that she had purchased. And I kind of like went back and said to her, but did you have conversations with like friends and family about recipes? And you were like you were in the club of the air fryers. And did that not bring you some joy to have those conversations, to even look up recipes, to be on Pinterest and looking up the latest air fryer? Think of all those things and say, well, I paid for that experience. And I recognize now that I'm probably never going to use the air fryer. And looking at it just makes me feel bad. So I need to get rid of it, get it out of my house, because its value is already spent. So empathy in literature is like, obviously, like that is some beautiful, beautiful value that we can provide the world when we write on these terms, as this research shows. If we write characters that readers can step into and fill in the gaps and start to understand and feel what other people might be thinking, feeling, helps dispel prejudices. I honestly get, it's so amazing. The value there is unquestionable. So what is the value in our other writing if it's not that? So again, I told you, like, all the mentors are talking about, like, I don't watch TV, I don't watch Netflix, I don't do this. If you're hanging around me long enough, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I love my TV. I love my movies, I love my TV, because I love story. I love story. Whether it's on the page or on the screen, I love story. And some of that story is this rich, deep, sort of literary level story. And some of it is just like brain candy for me. So I'll give you a perfect example. Scandal, okay, by Shonda Rhimes. I was late to that train. I wasn't in on any of the Shonda stuff. But one day I was really sick a couple of years ago. I had like fever. I don't remember what the heck happened, but it was obviously like I was going to be in bed for the day, just laying down. And I'm on Netflix and I see Scandal and I'm saying to myself, well, I guess I should just put that on. If I fall asleep, no big deal. Like, whatever. So I put it on and I'm riveted in this insanity that each episode as it ended, particularly in the first season, I remember this. Literally, I'm not even joking. When the episode would end, I would whisper the word scandalous. Because it was so ridiculous. Oh my gosh. But do you hear and feel the joy that this ridiculousness gave me? Oh, guys, I was so sick, but I did not care. I was in this wonderful, ridiculous, fictional world of Scandal. And I couldn't get enough of it. I would pay hard-earned cash for that feeling because that is immensely valuable. And to actually deliver that kind of feeling to somebody when they're feeling so physically crappy, come on. So let's talk about Danielle Steele. Her book, her excerpt that they gave in the research, doesn't do anything on the empathy test. But what about the person who's had a terrible day? Bad day at work. Or the kids are nuts. They're bananas for reasons that, no one knows. Full moon? Who knows? They're just crazy. Or maybe you're stuck in traffic, like the entire way home and bad weather, and you walk in the door of your house and you're done. You're just like done with the world and miserable. And you go to your shelf and you say, there is that crazy Danielle Steele. Let me pull that off the shelf. Let me sit down and read whatever nonsense, drama, excitement, romance, fantasy, fiction, and just be in it. I think we've all had this experience. Again, if you're listening to Stop Writing Alone, I think you're into story, you get it. You've had this experience with a book where it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful, even when it is so silly. I read this book years ago. I can't even remember the author. The title of the book is E, okay? And it was written at the lowercase letter E. Some silly book. I grabbed it because I liked the cover with the little blue E on the orange background. And it was written in email. It was just emails. And this was like when email just started. This book was so hilarious. So funny to me. I wish I still had the book to see if it's even remotely funny. I have no idea. But again, one of those things that like I could pick it up at any moment and just get taken away and take a little weight off. Do you not want to do that for somebody? Do you not want to be that person that relieves some of the weight of the world off someone else's shoulders? Your story matters so much, whether it is in the lofty, huge, earth-shattering position of building empathy. Nothing Nothing bigger than that. Or the simple beauty of making a single person's day better. And I don't mean that your writing has to be comedy or uplifting. Some people just love getting into a murder mystery, death, destruction, scandals everywhere. And that's their jam, right? I don't mean that you have to write happy, fluffy stuff. Your story, it's making someone's day. I don't have to argue that any further. Your story matters. There's science to prove it. There's anecdotes to prove it. Stop doubting yourself. And if the world around you is telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't do a thing that you feel deeply you should be, then you have to start surrounding yourself with different people. It all comes back to community, always. Find your people and keep the conversation going. Keep yourself motivated and inspired, and shake those doubts, because your story matters. Whether to change the world or to change one person in the world, you need to get writing. So stop listening to me and get back to work. And I will see you next week, unless you're checking in on Friday for your writing prompt to maybe get inspired for your next awesome story. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you then. At the beginning of this episode, there was a request for corporate sponsors, someone who's a business who's trying to sell something to the audience of Stop Writing Alone. But I wanted to take this moment to remind you that you too can be a sponsor of Stop Writing Alone. If you truly enjoy what's going on here and you want to help keep it going and help expand what could be happening here at Stop Writing Alone, then don't forget what we talk about at the top of every single episode is the coffee page. It's ko-fi.com/stopwritingalone. Every single dollar that you donate through coffee is a sponsorship to this podcast, to the community, and everything that extends from it. Every day, week, and month, I have another idea of what I would like to share with the community, but it all needs some sort of capital. So if you would love to fund these little ideas that are happening, things like the Swap 52 Club or the YouTube channel, or little printings of ebooks that I'm hoping to do really soon, then head on over. ko-fi.com/stopwritingalone. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the Stop Writing Alone podcast wherever you're listening to this episode today. Then connect with us on Facebook at Stop Writing Alone Facebook page or in the Stop Writing Alone with Nicole Rivera Facebook group. Check Instagram or Twitter where I'm at NV_Rivera to find links to our email newsletter.